Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heart and hand. That's nordvpn.com/heart and hand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar and as always I will be your host this week with a stellar lineup of guests. First of all, the Sage of Saltcoats himself, Mr. Andy McGowan is here. Hello Andrew.
Hello David, thanks for having me back on.
Dundee on a Saturday night. I get the impression that wouldn't be your first choice of a place to spend your downtime.
My Saturday nights aren't very exciting, but they're more exciting than Dundee, but when you put Rangers on Dundee, then it becomes an exciting place. How's that for an answer?
Yes, that's very much true. And joining us to run the rule over how Rangers wind up at Dens Park or the Scott Forum or whatever it's called, it's still on Tannadice Street, that much I know, is Adam Thornton. Hello, Adam.
Hi, David. Yeah, bit of a mental game, wasn't it? I'm not sure there's much that we can take from it tactically, but I'll give it a good go.
Yeah, I don't think I've needed a rewatch or something to figure out what went on since I saw Inception, because that was a wild 90 minutes, and I have watched it back. See, during the game, I was very unhappy, Andy, with what I was watching, and I think it's frustration because they'd put in such a good performance before, we were on a high, and then Barry Ferguson talked about old habits coming back. He talked about how it was the same things he's seen before that they've done all season. And he was spot on. Careless in possession, terrible decision making, defensively not doing the basics, not staying with your man, everyone looking around at someone else to bail them out of a hole. It was an error-strewn performance. Against that, yes, they did show character and they came back. But Cyril Dessers himself, being interviewed afterwards about that, said, you showed character to come back. And he said, yeah, but we've had to do that too often. We keep having to do that. That's not good enough. So I was heartened to hear that because they're absolutely right. You cannot continually give teams a 2-goal start and expect to prosper.
No, I mean, after the Celtic game, speaking to people, someone saying, oh, you don't know what Rangers are turning up. And I was like, well, surely to goodness, if they're Fenerbahce in the Celtic game especially, the team must be a wee bit energised and have a wee bit of belief and understand that this kind of je ne sais quoi that Barry Ferguson talks about, which he calls character. I call it, grit, determination, desire. It's a load of things. You're thinking, hopefully the penny's dropped for someone far too late, but hopefully the penny's dropped in terms of what's required to be a Rangers player in these types of games. I went into the game thinking Dundee need this much more than us. The results of the day with Kilmarnock and St Johnstone were in their favour, and they'd have been looking at that saying, we can get anything at all tonight, then it's a big, big deal for them. And I'd watched them against Dundee United. All right, it's a derby, but they absolutely blew them away in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah,
really.
They were really good, yeah.
Super dynamic, really, high press, high tempo. Really, really good, really impressive. And I thought we were in for more of the same, and I thought we need to be ready for this from the first minute. But, if Barry's calling it old habits, all habits are what? Being pushed, because see the first 30 seconds, 40 seconds, you've got basically their corner comes from Ridvan turning in, passing it back, the pass isn't quite right, and Raskin's not quite ready for it. Next thing, they're doing their touchline, byline, and they've got a corner for it. And in the corner, Dundee, they're due, they're aggressive for set pieces. They love the long throws, even though every one of them was a foul throw. I don't know if you've noticed that in the telly. But to lose that in the first minute,
you never get those now.
I know, but this was really obvious.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. And I've sat and watch English matches and that's a foul throw. But I think I'm so inured to it now, because they never get given.
Officials aren't interested. But that to lose that in the first, what was it? 60, was it 60, 90 seconds? I'm like,
90 seconds,
I burst out laughing. I was like, after everything the Celtic game's going through your mind at that moment, because you're like, are we just going to throw away the 3 points we won then and undo everything with the kind of momentum that we built up for having to enjoy an international break for once because you're a wee bit afterglow and you're like, it's blown away. So that first half it was just the same as Kilmarnock, unacceptable. So many misplaced passes, lack of attention to keeping the ball, just untidy play. There was a couple of, they were all culprits, but there was a couple of standouts. I thought Ridvan was utterly, contemptible, and for a guy that some people sit in the fence around, should he be staying or should he be going? Can he be a part of a Rangers, a successful team and going forward? I was like, you're doing yourself no favours here. And I single him out deliberately because I thought it was terrible. And you've got, no amount to climb, but you're back in the back foot, and then we'll talk about the other goals. It was just a disappointing start, and the Bears were cracking up. Got to say,
I don't blame them. I was the same, and funnily enough, afterwards, a few people, which is a pet hate of mine, by the way, when people are talking about something as it happens, to then go back a day later with all the emotions at it and go, do you regret this? No, I don't regret anything I said during the performance, because they were really poor. Yes, we won, and I'm glad we won, but a lot of that performance was unacceptable and something we've seen far too often. Adam, the manager did line up. We wondered if he would go with the three at the back again. He did. Now, this was a different match, and Andy touched on it there. It was one that I think we were looking at and saying, okay, we know we can play these big matches. We know we can do this when the opposition will probably have most of the ball, but we can be solid and hit on the break. How will we do in a match where we dominate possession? And to me, it appeared the way that we would get round that was, we'll just have 50-50. We'll let them have an attack and then we'll have a go. And it was like, at times, that game, for both sides incidentally, but it suited them a lot more than it suited us, reminded me of games I played at school where just everybody held after the ball. And things like positional discipline and passing a man on and tracking runs, that all went out the window. And it was just, you have a shot, we have a shot. Brilliant for Sky TV, not very great for my energy and heart rate.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, great for the neutral, but not so great for us who are very much not. It was really similar to the Kilmarnock game for me. Dundee obviously went and got the goal, and then they pushed up again. But I just felt like even when they were doing that, so when you know what it's like when. How many times have we seen a team get one goal against us and then just go, right, that's us done, sit back and break us down? They weren't doing that, and that was the same at Kelly as well. Like going to 2-0 against Rangers, you'd think, right, shut up shop, but they just didn't do it. They just kept coming after us. They played so high up. I wasn't surprised, same as Kelly, I wasn't surprised. We got that goal at half time, and then I did think we would probably go on and win it, same as the Kelly game, because they were just a complete opposite to what we expect these teams to do. It's refreshing in a way, and it should, in theory, play into Rangers' hands, but we're just not. We just weren't at it. I thought albeit the shape was the same, and it was roughly, I think it was only Egaman, wasn't it, replacing Czerny. It was roughly the same team, but it just felt like we approached it differently. Diamandi wasn't getting up in support of the front two. Egaman wasn't doing what Czerny did in terms of offering that kind of threat in behind that happened at Parkhead. He wasn't doing very much, if we're honest, in those early minutes or the first half. And I just sort of felt Diamandi, Barron, Raskin, even Egaman, Tavernier, were all kind of playing in the same place. And our only approach, our only tactic was to get Dessers through on goal, which, I mean, he's absolutely fantastic at getting through on goal when he's on side. But unfortunately, as we've seen this Saturday, it's the kicking the ball in the net, but that can be a bit of an issue. We did get loads of chances through it. I just felt like if we were able to coordinate a bit better and we had a bit more pace in behind or anything like that, or ingenuity, someone that wants to break forward from the midfield a bit more like Diamandi was doing at Parkhead, I thought we could have got a lot of joy a lot earlier. So That's a black mark for me, because that's a similar issue that happened against Kilmarnock. Albeit they get to half time, they did change it up a little bit. We got a bit more control in the game. But again, Dundee could have been 4-1.
Four excellent chances in that second half, Dundee. But I would say 4 chances that were better than the one they actually put away.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, yeah, I mean, credit. I hate the whole credit thing. It's funny, the character piece. Oh, great character to come back, but surely then it's a complete lack of character in the first half to capitulate the way that we did. But that just seems to get glossed over because you win. So that's the part that I really struggle with, those intangibles about we decide what character is based on how a game went. Surely I don't think we can come out of that game and think we showed great character, because we were really poor in the first half. So that's a big lack of character. And then great, we get the goal in the second half. But as we've seen before, that goal comes for you sometimes it doesn't. There's an element of luck in it as well with the clearance. So yeah, I don't know where I stand on that game. I'm not sure there's much to take from it other than what I said with regards to the Kilmarnock parallels. You hit the nail on the head, David. It's a story as old as time now. Celtic, Fenerbahce, we're going to be fine. You can't compare those games to these games. For me, they're in two separate buckets. The Motherwell game, the Kilmarnock game, and now the Dundee game is the sort of bread and butter games. And we've got out of jail in 2 of them, and very much in jail in the Motherwell game. But I think they're separate to the other 3 that we've seen so far.
Sorry to interrupt, Dave. See, on a character point, I know what you're saying. I'm very much, it's whatever. At the final whistle, you make that judgment, because we know we're a moments team. We have 20-minute periods where we're brilliant, 20-minute periods where we're absolutely abject, and it's all relative, because I think what Ferguson's trying to point out is that we know so long ago, I'm talking about a week ago, would have folded under these circumstances with the Kilmarnock situation in the Dens Park, going behind by 2 twice. We would never have recovered from it. So I think it's got to be a measure of character, and I was delighted with it. I know what you're saying, Adam, but I take it as a real positive, despite the first half debacle.
Yeah, no, but let me come in here though on this. That here's the thing, and I think what Adam's driving at. Barry Ferguson spoke afterwards about they were told just what you said at the start there, Andy. Dundee were coming off a brilliant victory for them away against their rivals, and they dominated, hit 4, played brilliantly, so they're in form. They'll have a boost from the results. You're spot on. It's 5:30 game, live on Sky, national television, and it's Rangers, right? They're going to be bang up from this right from the start, and nothing. Just Rangers go out and dawdle. And Rangers seem to need... They remind me of when I used to go into work on a Monday morning into the office. It would take me about an hour and a half to get my shit together. And that's what Rangers seem to... They seem to always want, the first half hour at least, to, scratch their arse, read the paper, settle into the working day. Dundee were bang up for this and wanted it more. And that was what annoyed me in the first half, was that it was basics. They ran harder. They worked harder. They were first to second balls. They wanted to win their tackles more than Rangers did. And, Barry spoke at the end about it, and he said, they were warned, they were told, I had to give them a rocket at half-time. How many times has a manager had to give this Rangers squad a rocket at half-time? Why are they incapable of going out into one of these matches and saying, right, lads, we know what they're going to do. They're going to do what we would do if it was Fenerbahce or what we did at Parkhead last week, which is they're going to go for the jugular right from the start. Let's everybody on their mettle, keep it simple at the start. Let's get control of this winner battle. And they never do this domestically.
They're not good enough, David. That's the bottom line. That I'm not saying that this character...
They should be good enough occasionally to be able to do that against the likes of St Mirren or Motherwell. But yeah. Adam's just rhymed off the last 5 games, and in every one of them it's taken us about half an hour before we've adapted to that.
Totally agree. I'm more making the point that the recovery counts for something. This team's gone nowhere, right? Half this team shouldn't be here, and they won't be here if we get our wish. But the fact that we win means something. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree, and I'd far rather win than not. But I think one of the issues that we have is now that, by the way, defence is clearly an issue, because I think that's 2 goals in 6 of the last 8 matches we've conceded. Right, that's unacceptable for a Rangers team. But it is this constantly looking surprised at the other team, treating it like a cup final. They've all been here long enough now to understand that that's what it's going to be like, particularly away from home. And yet they start so slowly. We've given teams a 2-goal lead in, I think, our last 4 matches, domestic out with Parkhead. And that you would want them to be learning, surely. Even just in the middle of that run, going, here, lads, we keep doing this. Let's try something different here. And yet they don't.
Maybe I've got too much criticism, David, in terms of what the managers say after listening to the last 3 come in and promise everything's going to be amazing. I think Ferguson said after the game we'd have lost this game 6 weeks ago. Blah blah blah. 8 weeks ago, Dundee United went 1-0 up against us, and we come back and won 3-1. I just don't. I'm wary of that. Everything's better now because I'm here and we just need to win games. I'm so bored of that strategy. It's not win the game equals everything's great. We showed a lot of character. We need to see so much more. I appreciate this circumstance right now is the very definition of short term. And yes, just winning games and getting through the end of the season is all we're really doing. We're not particularly building towards anything at the minute with the coaching staff that we've got here, with the players that we've got here. We know there's going to be a big turnaround, but just those sound bites that managers say about we'd have lost this 6 weeks ago, well, that's not quite true because we come back, Clemonte's come back in loads of games. The previous managers have come back in loads of games to win. It's one of these things. That game on Saturday night was a coin toss. I don't personally take much out of it in terms of looking forwards, but maybe that's just me being overly cynical about it.
Well, let's talk about something then that teed up the second goal, and that is a couple of factors. Firstly, the biggest one in it, another mistake by Jack Butland. Now, there are levels of mistakes that goalkeepers make. There's I could have done a bit better with that. And I would put, for example, our third goal, Tom Lawrence's goal in that. I think Dundee's goalkeeper should do a bit better with that because it's not right in the corner. But it's not a howler, right? There is a difference. There's ones where you look at your goal and say he could have done a bit better there, but it's not a howler. A howler is when they're basically chucking one in. And Jack Butland, I think that's now, I can think of at least 6 this calendar year, and we're only at the end of March. He's regularly chucking one in, punching the ball into his own net, dropping pass back, basically, efforts right in front of forwards. It seems to be constant right now. And I don't know if that's a reason, Andy, that it spreads panic into the defence, but the defence at the weekend, any ball into their box was panic stations. They were running about with no cohesion, no understanding of where their teammate was supposed to be. And Dundee were just waiting, creating spaces and taking advantage of them. And the whole thing was amateurish in the first half. It was that bad. It wasn't great in the second half, but it was, the first half was just abysmal. The phrase that you always use is schoolboy stuff. It kind of was schoolboy stuff because it was that just chase after the ball. Don't worry about who's your man or anything like that. Just go and Rangers, if you look at that second goal, first of all, Igama has a chance to clear it, doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Then Diamandi and Raskin are caught on their heels, don't react. Then the whole defence is caught running one way. Nobody is going back in. And even at that, Jack Butland then proceeds to drop an absolute bollock and a goal goes in. And like I say, we're conceding 2 goals a lot. That's a lot to concede for a team. And it's constantly giving us mountains to climb.
Well, Butland's, better than being a goalie, he's a senior player and he seems to go to bits too often. It was a really, really bad mistake. It was bread and butter, training manual. You see him doing it in the warm-up and he just got it so badly wrong. I thought from front to back, that first half defensively in both shape, but also in terms of diligence, tracking people, competing, I thought we were all over the shop. I still, and I know it's my old hobby horse, I still come back to physicality. I think you see it in Diamandi especially. Sometimes the game just gets a wee bit too rough and tumble for him, and he's not a wee softy, he's a wee skinny wee guy, right? And he gets stuck in, but sometimes I just think our team, when we come up against Dundee, big physical team, even the boy Mulligan out wide, he was a big boy. You've got pace for Adeyemi. They're just an aggressive and relatively physical team. But welcome to Scotland, this is part of our problem this year. We've not been able to handle that. And But even, Tavernier at the goal, the first goal, doesn't get tight. Well, he gets tight, but doesn't get aggressive enough to get to the ball first. Balogun was struggling. Big Suter was all right, but at times he was the only guy there. He was flying into tackles and flying into headers. It just, as you say, I said, the guy next to me, I said, it's an under-9s game, this. And what's the answer there? You're looking for quality to shine through and for Rangers to start dictating what the game's to look like, but we were letting Dundee do that. And that starts with keeping the ball. You keep the ball, you'll dictate what the game shape looks like. And we couldn't do it. And I'd like to say it was because Dundee were super in their press and their tackle, but too often the big guy Silla in the middle of the park, especially at Dens Park, dominates your midfield. Wins the tackles, wins the balls first. Too many times the balls were bouncing, they were letting them bounce. Sigaman, you quite rightly say for that second goal, perfect example, just some kind of half-arsed header. It just wasn't good enough, and we've got to find I'm saying we've got to find whatever the team looks like next season has got to be able to handle these kind of games first and foremost. And it starts with being good football teams. It's not always about physicality as much as I'm saying it. Get the ball, keep it, and teams should have to bend to our will in terms of what the game looks like.
Adam, Andy makes a point there, and I agree with it, which is that yes, you know that a team's going to be physical, but you'll beat them with skill. That's what you should have. You should have better players. Our use of the ball at the weekend, and this is a regular thing, it's not errors that are forced by a press, because that can if a team has a really good press, they are going to occasionally force errors, and you'll have to deal with that. We understand that. But when you are constantly giving the ball away through unforced errors, Andy picked out Yilmaz. Yilmaz at the weekend, I mean, there were a couple of passes that I'm sure the listeners will remember where he's actually trying to hit it from the left to the right flank, and he ends up shanking it, and it somehow goes wider out onto the left, and he just sort of looked up as much as what just happened there. But it wasn't even just the long passing. It was just little short 6-yard square passes that were behind them or that weren't to the player who was expecting it. And I think that spreads throughout a team. I think that causes that sort of jitteriness that I was referring to earlier. And these are basics.
They are basics, and I think you can have the greatest tactical plan in the world and be completely solid, but if you've got players that can't execute simple passes or can't concentrate,
is that the key word, concentration? Because they can do it. We know they can do this.
Watching Jack Butland, for me, it's lapses in concentration there, certainly, in key moments, particularly when the ball seems to be down his left or bounced in front of him. There's a catalogue of these issues of him struggling to get down on there. Redvan as well, yeah, 100%. Even the golden boy Igaman isn't safe. His passing at times over the last 6, 7, 8 games has been terrible. Making wrong decisions, etc. Which again, I'm okay with in terms of a young player coming into a new environment. But as we say all the time, we're asking these players to come in and be the new saviour after 6 weeks, and they aren't. In his case, certainly isn't ready for that. It needs to be coming in to a well functioning team. Same with Jeffrey, coming into a well functioning team where he has the opportunity and the space to grow and rotate. So yeah, these issues aren't. I don't think they're uncommon for younger players coming in. But some of the other players that you mentioned, like Redvan, who's a couple of years older, more experience. Even Dessers, bless him, the execution on some of his shots weren't great. But even just simple things he can struggle with as well. Dujon Sterling, for all everyone loves his attitude and his application, his use of the ball sometimes can be very ropey. As well, no one's safe, I don't think, in terms of the team. We spoke about Raskin's poor passing at times as well. So when you add all that together, I don't think it's a big surprise, but it really should be, because we need to start tidying this up. That sort of individual things that they can work on the training ground, and yeah, it's not one that I would say the manager is responsible fully for, because it's up to the individual. When you're making simple passes, it's not the manager's fault if you can't pass to your teammate 5 or 6 yards away. So yeah, I think it doesn't help. There's a lot of other issues without things as simple as that.
Yeah, I think that one of the really frustrating things for me is when it starts, it spreads through our team like a virus.
That's confidence and fear and concentration and
yep.
things. Oh yeah, for me.
Yeah, and yeah, as an individual thing, you sort you out first. That's, you make sure you're playing accurate passes, and hopefully it'll spread in a good way. We did make a lot of chances in the first half. Igaman, who wasn't brilliant, but he still slipped a couple of really nice balls through to Cyril Dessers, who, look, I don't know what else we can say, Andy, because we've been over this so many times with Cyril Dessers. 100 games now for Rangers, 45 goals. That's a pretty good return. The issue with him is that you have days like this far too often, and the amount of chances he had, a striker for Rangers needs to bury at least 3 of those, I would say. I do like his attitude. I do like the fact that he keeps going and he never lets anything get him too down. And even in that game, he perseveres and he perseveres. But my God, if I wasn't already baldy, he would have caused it. And as Adam says, it's not luck he gets these chances. It's not they keep falling to him instead of someone else. It's his movement is terrific for it. It's the way he spins away from defenders. He kept putting himself into those positions, but it was just that final execution where Chris Boyd said that he's a bit safe in his finishing, i.e. he constantly tries get a good contact and hit it straight to get it on target. But what that ends up with is a day almost comedically at the weekend where it just continually hits the goalkeeper, and that you need to vary it up sometimes. And the last of his chances just before half time, that was one that it's just look up, you've got time to do so, and then just pass it into the corner, direction you're facing, and instead, again, he leathers it and the goalkeeper gets a boot on it. Like I say, we've done it. We've done it to death, and the listeners will all know. I think that you either are in a position where he drives you nuts, or you're in a position where he drives you nuts, but you understand his limitations. I don't think there's much or many other positions to take on him, really.
Well, listeners, press record, because I'm going to defend Cyril Dessers. You've heard me on here, right? I'd have had them hunted, and I thought he was a major, major reason for a lot of our ills first half of the season, inability to hold the ball up and all this kind of stuff. I'm far more content since the advent of Igaman, because what Igaman does is brings a bit of... It takes the pressure off in terms of the physicality up the park a wee bit. He can do things, and they're a decent foil for each other. I'm not saying they're a solution, but a decent foil. I thought on Saturday at the game, the same as you, I thought he's driving me crazy here and missing really, really gilt-edged chances. I watched it back, and that was still true. But I think it was, it reminded me of, and I'm going back here, it reminded me of Ellie McCoist, if you remember. It was the same kind of thing he used to do fairly regularly early on in his Rangers career. I know we've not got 10 years to wait for Dessers to mature and all the rest. I know that, and that's the point I was going to make. We've not got the time for this anymore. And the goal, the winning goal, right, was utterly fantastic. I thought it was, a fantastic goal, just all round touch, finish, Papan, Jean-Pierre Papan. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But the game could have been so much different if he'd taken any one of the chances he had. It's just the way he is, and I don't think much is going to change. But you're right, David. His attitude is I can't argue with it. Can he be here next year for serious? Unless by some miracle our financial situation and squad situation changes and he becomes an option as opposed to the only option in terms of a goal scorer. Because Danilo's not done enough to kind of take that mantle. And Igaman, as Adam quite rightly says, we're flogging them away to death where we should be rotating them far much more. So that's the only way I can see a redemption for him in terms of being part of the Rangers squad next year, is if he becomes, a rotation option as opposed to the one and only. Very frustrating day from... Go to give him credit for the as you say, David, the movement, fantastic. Doesn't happen by accident, and there's actually a lot of attributes I've grown to quite admire on him. But it's the but. It's the same but as we had at Parkhead last week when he had a great chance, and you're like, why do you do that? Why is that your choice instead of just taking a touch and rattling it? Why did you cut in? Very strange player. Probably go to Bilbao and score 3 chop-tastic finishes. But would they be Davium? Would they be Davium?
The reason I would sell him, incidentally, is that he's sellable. You know, that you could. He's even
some YouTube reel.
Well, even just with his limitations, his goal scoring figures alone, you'd get 3-4 million still. You know, because he's worth that to a team. But yeah, no, I agree. I think he's not going to be a number 9 because in key moments, we can all think of them in matches, he doesn't deliver. And then when you've written him off completely, he delivers. And then you think, oh, right, okay. And then we go, he's maddening. Very likeable as well. It'd be a lot easier if he was a dick, but he's not. He's a lovely fella. And yeah, we did get back into Adam, an own goal, maybe. As Wags suggested, it would take that to finally put one into the net. Start of second half, Rangers got a bit more control of the midfield, but Dundee were dangerous on the break. Tiffany's missed a sitter, really, where it's easier to score than to put it by the post. They've hit the post, and then they do score. And yeah, it's, again, just poor defending from Rangers. Although, was there a foul in the build-up on Sterling as he's running to get the ball? Is he knocked down by Murray? But then is he cute enough to go down and get the foul? Because he doesn't go down, so the ref doesn't give the foul. But even so, it was still poor defending and, in all fairness, a good finish.
Yeah, it was a good finish. Yeah, I thought the same as you. We're sometimes a little bit too honest in those situations, and if you go down, then you would imagine you would probably get a foul there. But yeah, no more than Dundee deserved, as we said. I had hoped that the back three would provide a bit more solidity, and it did away to Fenerbahce, and it certainly did the first half at Parkhead. But yeah, if we're going to defend in this way in these games, it doesn't matter whether you've got 3 or 5 or 7 back there. Considering we had 3 centre halves, 2 full backs, not even wing backs or wingers playing as wing backs. So it was 5 defenders and sort of 3 central midfielders in there that we've all been crying out for, and all these gaps appearing time after time. Like we said, second half, yeah, okay, it goes to a 4, and we still see the same gaps. So I'm thinking, like, well, could we have got thrown another man up there, someone with a bit of pace to complement Dessers and Igaman from the start? Would that have helped things? But yeah, I'm not sure. It's those individual errors that we mentioned before, but it was a really good finish.
Yep, it was. And then we've had a few moans on here today, but now for some praise. Because the manager makes a couple of changes. He brings on Danilo. Now, Danilo, I urge you, if you haven't watched the game back, you might think, well, he didn't do much, but watch his movement at the 2 goals. He takes men out of the space, which opens the space up for James Tavernier and Tom Lawrence. What I will say is, though, Andy, 2 brilliant strikes. I mean, genuine, superb. First of all, Tav, it's got power, it's got placement, and Lawrence, it's the power that beats the goalkeeper. A goalkeeper who incidentally was having a good day.
We don't do it enough. It's the kind of goal where it makes it look so simple, a real blast into the net, and we should be doing it much, much more because we'll get players that are capable. Lawrence used to attempt him much more in his early days before his injury, and it's something I've often wished and hoped, and I think maybe Clement, when he brought him on late in games, was looking for him to kind of give, because he's got a good shot on him. He's got that kind of knuckleball effect when he shoots. Tavernier, if we're talking about, I know it's a low bar for a pass match. I thought Tavernier was one of the better players in Saturday night.
I thought going forward, yeah, definitely hand in 3 of the goals.
Yeah, and it's by virtue of the quality, that even for the own goal, it's the first time we really got their defenders facing their own goal, stuff like that, and that's why I still think he's worth having around at this stage anyway. And it was a fantastic strike, and Lawrence's wasn't far behind it. Danilo, you mentioned Danilo there, didn't you? I thought he done well when he came on. I think because talking about Desser's movement and so forth, Danilo's got good movement. He's an intelligent player. You can see him when he comes on that he's got good movement, good link-up play, and there's more to see for him, but it might be too late. This is the thing. Between one thing and another, mostly injuries, it might be too late for him to actually fulfil whatever promise, glimpses of promise we've got. This is the problem we've got. Different if the takeover wasn't happening. I think it would change the dynamic. But for him, it might be too little too late. There is a reason why he's no first pick. There is a reason that Agamani and Dessers are getting picked before him. But we need to see more of these kind of goals. And I've noticed, it might be nothing. It might be nothing. I might be looking into it too much. But I've been watching the shooting drills before the games with Dodds. I think McCann gets involved as well. And it's something different. And they're a wee bit better because often I watch them before games in the Clermont time and I'm like, how can we know? No wonder we can't score. Have you ever watched them, Adam? They're absolutely lamentable. They're getting a bit better, and I think that's testament to the kind of stuff they've been doing. So nothing happens by accident.
Adam,
I was just going to say a couple of things on those goals. You're right to point out. There was a similar pass in each of them. So Lawrence threads a ball through to Danilo, which we don't do enough of. It goes through to Dundee players. It is a risky pass, fair enough, but we've got enough men behind the ball, but we don't do enough of that. But then Danilo is just that little one-touch cushion, and it just sits perfectly for Tavernier. And then the same with Lawrence's goal. Raskin does a similar kind of pass through to Lawrence, and it just gives him that 2-3 seconds of space just to sort of pick your time to swing your leg back and hit the shot. So those things are great, but again, those are just things happening in isolation. It's difficult to see if that's something we'll see as a pattern, but I think that's what these guys give you. I've been quite consistent with Danilo, much in the same way that I was with Raskin, that if there's a way that we can get these players fit and available and in a style of play that suits them, with a manager that wants to pick them, then they are good players. We know from the past that just because you're a good player doesn't mean you'll ever be a good Rangers player, and you might not get that run, you might not get your luck, there might be other players ahead of you, that's fine. But the case remains, guys like Danilo and Raskin are good players, and how we get them into the team, obviously there's a lot of different variables there, etc. And I put Danilo in that bucket. I'm hoping that we see more of Danilo, because without being rude, and yes, you look at them and say one scoring goals and one can't stay fit. We know what we've got with Dessers there. If Danilo was fit and available, I'd like to see more of him over the next 2 months. Worst case, you get him going for a few months, and you might get him sold in the summer for a little bit of money if he does quite well. I'm not talking about the European games. I think Dessers is probably deserves his place in those games, but certainly would like to see Danilo getting a bit more of the minutes there. I don't know, David, what's your thoughts? I guess we were all pleased that we didn't rush into a new managerial appointment, but then when you literally double down on short-termism, I guess when the caretaker manager comes in, he's maybe just going to play the guys that are more robust and have been there throughout the season. As Andy said, we've seen, I know Rice came on, but we've not seen Finlay Curtis, we've not seen anyone, Ross McCausland, really coming in and getting minutes. It's been sort of moving back to the tried and trusted, if you like, or the more experienced players, because I guess he thinks that's the least risky approach. So I don't know what your thoughts on that. Is it likely, given that we are playing effectively friendlies now till the end of the season domestically? Do you think it's likely a caretaker manager is going to come in and sort of build towards next season, or are they more focused on what they think gets wins?
I think there's so much change coming in the summer anyway, that the idea of building anything towards next year kind of goes out the window slightly, where there's going to be a different manager, there's going to be a new sporting director, there's going to be new players, there's going to be players leaving. That it is impossible. I think he was given a task, Barry, which is 3 months, try and improve the mood. Trying to win some football matches because everybody's so down in the dumps. And he's done that. And he's doing very well, and he's carrying himself very well. And he did make good changes at the weekend. On Danilo, I have a theory that both Dessers and Igaman, when playing in the number 9 position, both look better when Danilo was behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at when Igaman was scoring a lot, he was the number 9 and he had Danilo in behind him. And I think Dessers is better when he's got Danilo in behind him. So you've got this situation where your two, if you like, in inverted commas, best strikers are Dessers and Igaman, but they're maybe not the best combo.
Yeah.
Maybe the better combo is one of them and Danilo. But then we don't know his fitness. We don't know, can he play, game after game. Just now, he hasn't in his time here, and there's been reasons for that. So, no, I was glad to see young Rice come on. I mean, that was a vote of confidence in him to come off the bench, and he did well, I thought, when you mentioned earlier, Adam. It's not like the young players in these matches can turn to the senior players for guidance a lot of the time because they're too busy struggling with their own game. One thing I will say about that, the Tav goal, incidentally, was it just me? Because this struck me as the ball fell to him. I was like, oh, there's Tav, because he used to get into these positions a lot, but he hasn't so much this season, noticeably, to the point where when I saw him there, there was a little jolt of, oh, look, there's Tav. And then you remember why it's nice to see him in those positions, because he can do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think what you said there is spot on. I thought Rice did really well when he came in. It's tricky, I guess, easy to remember. He's only had a few games for Rangers, but I think it's easy to remember, or easy to forget, I guess, that the Queen's Park game was his last appearance, and he didn't last very long there. So it's good to see him coming back in. And yeah, same as you, I thought he did well. And yeah, I think Tavernier is worth calling out. I would want him to be stronger for the first goal, I have to say. Right back at the start. I think I guess he is strong in a sense, and maybe you can't legislate for Murray sticking his leg out like that, but I still would want him to be stronger and getting to that one. Getting to that one first. You can't take anything away from his goals. Like you said, the first is a cross into the box. Fair enough, it can go anywhere, but it goes in the net. And then I think he does really well for that goal. That goal is probably the pick of the bunch, I think, for me, in terms of, or certainly our goals, in terms of the technique to hit it. And then he's involved in, again, a little bit of luck involved in that winner. But you need to get the ball forward in those situations, and you need to try and get a break and see what happens. So yeah, I think a hand in 4 goals, maybe, if one against, if we're being critical, and then the 3 for us. And yeah, all the noise is sort of disappeared. I don't know if everyone, he has obviously done really well in that centre half role. He's been moved back into fullback. I was not surprised on that, I guess, because it maybe suits his skill set more. But it'll be interesting to see if that carries on, because I think, from memory, both of the European games he was the right-sided centre half, and then we had Ridvan out wide on one game and Stellan out wide on the other against Fenerbahce, I believe. So that's one to keep an eye on. Will they go back to that for Bilbao, or will Tavernier keep the right wing back role? But yeah, I think he was a big difference in this game for sure.
And then the winner, Andy. Now, we've been critical of the performance here today. The manager was critical of performance. Cyril Dessers was critical of performance after it, right? There was a lot to be critical about. However, I'm going to have a quick rant here against Celebration Police, which is, after the game, I was buzzing. You yourself said you were buzzing. We all were. I think I actually tweeted this team after it, because, just it hadn't led from at all. I mean, we were behind from the first minute for most of the match, and then end up getting the goal just, in injury time. And Dessers, of course, pops up, and it is a great goal because he's anticipating a mistake, which a good striker should do. He's anticipating that it won't get cleared, and it doesn't get cleared, and he's in. But a last-minute winner, even in a game, yes, we're 13 points behind, and yes, we've been poor, and we're not going to win anything, and all the rest of it. And the next day, I have absolutely no objection to people going, let's get this in context, lads, right? Let's not go overboard. But if you don't get a thrill for your team with a stirring comeback last-minute win, then you're missing an important part of your soul, surely.
There's something wrong in your life, to be honest. If I'm being really blunt, I'd be as curt as to say this is more than any day with football. Listen, I was there. I went up. It was bloody freezing, right? You're standing there, you're freezing. The sun was in the first half.
You're in Dundee.
You're in Dundee, which is the worst part of
it. Exactly.
Right? You've barely had your dinner because all they've got is their usual Pez and 6-foot bridies and all that. Right, so you're standing there, and the game's been abject for the large majority. Rangers have been extremely frustrating. no the dead rubber thing, right? There's no dead rubber, because if we'd lost that, all hell would have broke loose again, right? It's dead rubber in terms of a championship, but there's always something riding on the Rangers game, whether it's your happiness, the mood, the narrative for the next week or two. Everything's up in the air, right? And you can't beat a last minute winner. And this is, I'm not going to just use this for effect for my point, Adam, right? But we're talking about character earlier on. We've had it at Parkhead and we've had it at Dens Park, right? Late goals. There's something in that. I like to see that. It speaks to something wider in terms of team spirit or whatever they're trying to do just now. There's something happening that is better than before. Not saying it's as good as it can be or anything's going to come of it. I'm just meaning, and this year now, it's better than what it was. And you've got to enjoy the moments like that, right? Because we kind of deserved it. We found a solution. And if you're at the game, you're listening to the Dundee fans sarcastically singing, "Oh, Barry, Barry," they walking away and all the rest of it. And then all of a sudden, they're away like snow off a dike. So it's stuff like that that makes it worthwhile. And I go back to my point. If you can enjoy the moments where Rangers are scoring a last-minute winner, regardless of the circumstances, whether it's a women's team, whether it's the under-9s, whether it's, Roxy Bear and a shootout at half-time versus Hoopy Hound or whatever the hell he's called, you've got to enjoy it. And I enjoyed it, let me tell you.
I did too. And I don't mind so much. If you don't want to celebrate and, the reasons that I mentioned there, you're like, I don't care, it's 13 points, I'm no bother. That's fine. But it's the people, Adam, who then have a go at other people for being quite happy that their team won. That I just, no, stop it.
That's a total nonsense. I've probably been more critical than I usually am on here. Not necessarily critical, just I guess pleading caution. Let's not.
Yeah, definitely. Let's not pretend everything's brilliant. But that's different from dancer. We've won the game and having a nice Saturday night.
3-1 down. What was it? 76 minutes.
76
to win 4-3. I couldn't care less who that was against. That, like my life depended on it. It doesn't, like we said, it doesn't mean a huge amount in terms of the league or even building the next season, as we said. But as Andy said, a Rangers win just brings your mood up tenfold, regardless of who it's against and what it's for. So yeah, I think celebration police are a bit. It's fun police, isn't it? Effectively, it's not something that you want to get into. I wouldn't criticise anybody for celebrating that, over celebrating it, whatever you want.
Certainly not, especially not people at the game. Much was a ticket, Andy? 35, 40 quid.
34 quid, and you've got your bus up.
There you go, right? People have travelled, given up time on a Saturday to do that. Yeah. Go as nuts as you want.
Exactly. Get the pyro out.
Don't you fucking start. Big Capo, the man who ran the strictest bus in Europe.
Do you know what? I'm still part of the Boys Mill bus, and I see pictures in the Facebook and stuff like that, and they've got a boom box, they're drinking, they're smiling. I'm like, what?
Andy ran a strictly Presbyterian bus, folks. You sat there and he starchily played hymns on an old piano. And that was...
A wee Casio keyboard.
Sent everybody in the back to work on you were sent in the back to work on your BB badges. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. Cammy will be back with you later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra as we look ahead to what I think will be another really good game. I'm surprised it's not on TV as Rangers take on Hibs, who, of course, I think are coming at 15 games undefeated. So that should be a good match. Both teams, of course, having a full week to prepare for it. I'll be back on here next week. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and my thanks to our two wonderful guests. First of all, to Andy McGowan.
My pleasure, David.
And to Adam Thornton.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, everybody. We'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.